You know it was a treat. I just thought it was a present. Every day. What happens when a legend finally chooses to be honest when the mystery fades and the guy behind the mustache shows everything? At 81, Sam Elliott settles back in his leather chair seat, that renowned voice rolling like thunder across the canyon. And he's ready to do it for the first time in decades. Say the names. Not the parts that made him famous. Well known. Not the people who made a generation, but the women who made it him. 7 actresses that had more than just screen time with the cowboy, more than just time on screen with the cowboy who became a famous person. The person doing the interview leans forward, as if frightened to shatter the magic. Sam's eyes were still keen as a hawk despite his age, hold that a familiar glimmer of trouble. The look that made people fall in love with him in Tombstone, in The Big Lebowski, in A Star is Born. But this not about movies. This is about the man who lived between the cameras. The nights when the lights went out and the real Sam Elliott stepped out of the shadows. He slowly sips his whiskey, enjoying the burn, and that famous mustache twitches with something in between a grin and a secret. The room descends quiet save for the sound of wind blowing through the trees outside his house in Malibu. This is the time for his fans have been thinking about for 50 years. The Hollywood beauties who captured the eye of the most mysterious leading man. The actresses who could see beyond the quiet draw and the worn-out outside to find the fire that was burning. Under Sam Elliott never chased celebrity like other actors. He didn't try to get the tabloids to write about him or play the Hollywood game with careful thought accuracy. He was always strong, quiet type, both on and off screen. But that quiet and mystery only made him more attractive. Women were attracted to him like moths to a flame, and some of the most skilled and prettiest actresses of their generations found themselves stuck in his orbit with no way out. Catherine Ross was the first to go down beneath his spell, even though their story became a legend in Hollywood for different causes. They met while working on The Legacy in 1978. 2 people doing their jobs. Sam remembers nothing else but time when everything changed. It wasn't during a passionate love moment or a dinner for 2. It was in between shots. As Catherine was doing her hair in the mirror and saw his own face looking at her, she turned, smiled, and there was an electric connection between them. That has nothing to do with the script. People thought they were seeing a fairy tale. Love that turned into marriage. What they didn't know about the magnetic attraction that brought them together from the very first look. Catherine was more than just another conquest or a brief trip to Hollywood love. She was the woman who realized that Sam's tough exterior hid a man of surprising depth outside. There was a man with a lot of depth and care. They didn't have chemistry, made for the cameras. It was raw, real, and impossible to deny. But first there were other women. Catherine, who met Sam Elliott when he was still struggling for recognition, wondering whether his strong voice and look that stood out would ever find their spot in Hollywood. These were the actresses who thought the tall cowboy with a mustache from Sacramento before everyone in the world knew his name. Sybil Shepherd was riding high on her accomplishment from the last photo reveals when their paths met in the middle of the 1970s. She was from Hollywood royalty, the kind of blonde bombshell who might have any leading man she wanted. But there was something about Sam's quiet self-assurance was interesting. He didn't strive to impress her with rumors regarding his modest career or future ambitions. He just lived in that his fascinating method of let your presence speak for itself. Their relationship was short but strong and kept secret from the gossip columnists who want to know everything. Were more interested in Sybil's high-profile partnerships with directors and producers. What drew her into Sam? It wasn't his connections in Hollywood or his fame, because he didn't have either at that time. It was his realness in a town constructed on lies, his being grounded in an industry that was an expert in illusion. Sam's voice becomes that familiar growly whisper as he remembers those times when he snatched time with Sybil, rooms in hotels in towns that have been forgotten where they were making the movie. At night drives through the desert where they could be themselves without the pressure of what the public expects. She taught him that desire didn't always have to be complicated, that 2 persons sometimes could discover each other for no reason other than the fact that they suit together wonderfully, but only for a short time. The third name, he says, has more weight, more doubt. Farrah Fawcett was at the top of her fame. That made America love her. Hair that is bright and a smile that shines put out a million posters. But behind the public image was of a woman looking for seeking something real, something that moved more than just the surface partnerships that seemed to be the most important love in Hollywood. Sam met Farrah at an event for a good cause in 1979, long before either of them could have predicted where their careers might go. She had a compelling quality about her that went beyond how beautiful she was. There was weakness underneath the seeking quality in her confidence, things most people didn't see due of their eyes. They were too busy looking at everything else. They felt a connection right away, although hard. Farrah had a relationship with Lee Majors, even if their connection was already exhibiting signs of breaking that the tabloids hadn't found out yet. Sam was making his name as a character actor, still years away from the leading man status that would shape his future job. What they discovered in one another was a way to get away from the stress that came as their own levels of fame. The affair lasted 6 months. In hidden places where nosy people couldn't see photographers' eyes and gossip columnists, Sam remembers Farrah as a woman who laughed a lot but loved with care. Someone who knew that their connection was like a bubble that couldn't handle the strong light of public attention. It was over when it finished, with the assumption that they both had given each other exactly what they needed it at just the right time. But Sam is probably the most shocking name. Glenn Close is the one who shows. This was years before Fatal Attraction made her a well-known name, when she was still mostly recognized as a theatrical performer with rigorous dramatic and classical training chops. They worked together on a movie that was made for TV and has since everyone else had forgotten about it save the two folks who saw magic in each other while we were filming for those couple weeks. Glenn was not like the other women in Sam's life. She pushed him cognitively, challenged him to think more deeply into his work. He wouldn't be impressed by his natural charm until he showed he had substance to back it up. Their relationship was as much about art as it was as much about growing as it was about attraction. Even though the chemistry between anyone who saw them together knew that they were meant to be together. Sam's eyes get bigger as he watches it on set, far away as he remembers long talks that went on for a long time, early morning hours. Glenn's fierce intelligence that was just as quiet as his own wisdom. She saw through his short answers, cowboy persona to the deep guy beneath. While he acknowledged the passionate woman hiding behind her, their outside was calm and professional. Affair was brief yet transformative, each leaving their mark on the other's approach to their work and their comprehending what it really meant to get in touch with someone else. The room gets silent as Sam gets ready to tell the other names, each with their own weight of memory and meaning. The famous actor who made a name for himself by being the strong, quiet type is finally ready to end that silence, to give the stories that changed not only his personal life and his comprehension of the complicated dance of love, desire, and between two people who are pulled together against all reason and expectation. The fifth name that comes up from Sam's lips, it carries the weight of sadness and what could have been. Cher was already a big star when they met in the early 1980s. A lady somebody drew attention just by going into a room. But what caught Sam wasn't her stardom or her larger-than-life personality. It was the times when the light diminished and he saw the woman under the sequins and the attitude their paths touched during a Hollywood party that Sam attended reluctantly. Never at ease with the schmoozing and making small talk that seemed to keep the business going. Cher discovered him on the balcony with a drinking beer and looking at the lights of the city stretched out like stars that had fallen. She didn't go up to him with confidence everyone thought a lady who had won over both movies and music. Instead, she seemed almost bashful when she asked if she could be with him in the quiet. What 3 months of stolen time came next? Moments that went against everything the people felt they knew about both of them. Sam, the tough cowboy who didn't show much emotion, displayed emotion and was utterly disarmed by Cher's brutal honesty regarding her worries and anxieties. She, the brave performer who didn't look scared at all on stage, discovered a secure refuge in Sam's steady his presence and ability to listen without judgment. Their affair unfolded in hidden places all across Los Angeles. Late-night drives up the coast where Cher would stop looking so gorgeous and become just a woman who laughed at Sam's dry comments regarding Hollywood ridiculousness. Hotel suites where she would cuddle up into his chest and tell him the truth, her misgivings about whether anyone could love her for who she really is, not just the idol she had become into. Sam remembers how Cher's guard would fall when they were alone, how her great voice would get softer to a whisper to him about growing feeling different, like she was never really fit in. He became her a place to escape from a world that wanted her to be bigger than life every second of every day. She then told him to do something in return. Instead, accept his own star power running from it, which made him take dangers that would eventually shape his job. The end did not come from a lack of feeling, but because it was impossible to the way things are for them. Cher's job required Sam was always in the public eye while did well in the dark. They both knew their relationship couldn't handle the media attention that would have to follow if they went public. The end was polite but definitive, and everyone understood. They had given the other person anything valuable that would last long after their physical link ended. Jessica Lange was probably the most unexpected chapter in Sam's love life history. She was riding high on her success from Tootsie and Francis when they met during a festival for movies. In 1983, Jessica walked with the confidence of a lady who had already shown she wasn't simply another lovely face. But Sam could see that something was wrong below her calm exterior. There they started to bond since they were both cynical about how Hollywood treats performers like things instead of artists. Jessica was trying hard to be regarded seriously as Sam was a theatrical actress, while trying hard to get away from the duties as secondary characters that seemed to make his career clear. They found comfort in how well they understood each other. Difficulties in the industry and the loneliness that came with becoming successful never felt completely whole. What drew their shared love of admiration for being real in a world constructed on lies? Jessica was Sam's hesitation to play the game made me curious. The game in Hollywood. His happiness with being exactly who he was instead of what other people thought he should be. Sam was Jessica's powerful charm drew him in. Her brilliance and her refusal to for the sake of her art easier ways to become famous. Their relationship lasted for 8 months. Mostly on the spot when their shoots for their movies. They would get together in towns all around America that people have forgotten. Sam remembers Jessica as a woman who prompted him to look deeper into his characters, who made him look for realities about his feelings that he had been frightened to look into. The chemistry between them in real life, it was clear that they had a strong connection, but it was their intellectual tie that really held them together. Long talks about literature, philosophy, and the artists have a duty to reflect truth back to the world. Jessica saw in Sam had a depth that most directors didn't see. He saw in her a commitment to make that fit with his own quiet commitment. They had to say goodbye but friendly, each one knowing that their jobs were dragging them in different ways. Jessica was on the go among the types of major lady roles that would define her legacy, while Sam was finally starting to find his place as the strong, quiet person that would become his signature. They stayed buddies long after the romantic relationship came to an end, each one bearing regard for what the other person had taught them about love and art. The seventh and last name is Sam. Speaks maybe has the most mystery because it shows the way not taken. SpaceX was already made a name for themselves as one of Hollywood's best renowned actresses, who play dramatic roles when they met in the middle of the 1980s. She had a characteristic that made her stand apart. Sam had known a lot of other women, but this one was different. Earthiness that made him think of his own roots, together with a brain that could cut through fake like a blade. Almost much of their meeting was by accident. Both of them going to the same tiny play in Los Angeles. Both drawn to the intimate venue by their mutual passion for telling stories without giving in. They discovered in the same coffee shop after it, talking about the performance with the love of two people who really understood the work they had chosen to do their life to. What happened next was Sam's most difficult relationship life. Not because of outside, not because of the situation, but because of the depth of feeling that grew between them. Saw through his cowboy act right away, seeing the thoughtful, a complicated man under the quiet outside. Sam was absolutely disarmed by her mix of strength and weak, her ability to be both strong and gentle at the same time moment. Their relationship went beyond the physical, even despite the attraction between they were drawn to each other. They talked for a long time. Takes walks around Griffith Park, talks that went from childhood, from recollections to deep conversations regarding the nature of truth in telling stories. Put Sam's to the test ideas he had about himself and his place in the world, and he gave her a sense of stability that her passionate career has become harder and harder to find. The partnership lasted for 2 years. which is the longest of any of Sam's affairs before he got married to Catherine Ross. But it didn't end not because they didn't love, but because they loved too much. Both of them knew that what they felt for too strong, too much for each other, too busy to work with the careers that made them who they are. They made the hard choice to step back before their connection ruined everything else they had made. Sam's voice gets quieter when he has finished confessing, the weight of years descending around him like dust in the light of the setting sun. These 7 women have a big impact on his understanding of want, yet his understanding what it really meant to make a connection with another person. Every connection taught him something different, things about love, vulnerability, about the bravery needed to be entirely open to another person, to another individual. The interviewer moves forward, realizing that Sam's trip through recollection isn't nearly finished. There's something in the way his rough hands hold the whiskey glass, a strain that hints at one last waiting for a revelation. There is a long quiet between them, like a held breath. And when Sam finally says anything again, his voice has a distinctive, better, deeper, and less certain. He says something else. And for the first time in the talk, the famous confidence drops. Something I haven't told anyone, not even Catherine. The room gets impossibly still. The wind has stopped blowing outside, fully, as if nature itself is leaning in to hear. Sam's eyes are on something other than the interviewer, beyond the room and the present moment completely. 1976. I was nobody. Then, simply another tall glass of water yearning for a break. There was this woman, this amazing woman who could had any dude in Hollywood hell. She most likely did, but for 3 weeks she picked me. He stops for a moment, as if to think if they should keep going. The mustache that became his trademark, yet it was almost gone. Then, with just stubble and hope, and a type of raw attraction that couldn't be made or taught. He said Raquel Welch, finally says, and the name hangs in the like smoke from a bonfire that is going out. She was everything I wasn't. Sophisticated, worldly, and at ease in her own skin in ways I was still finding out that I was taping some uninteresting Western. And she was in between pictures, having meetings and becoming Raquel Welch. Sam's memories takes him back to another Hollywood, one where stars still held mystique and privacy was doable if you knew where to go hide. Raquel wasn't only a sex symbol the world witnessed in those famous posters and covers of magazines. She was a lady looking for something real under the well-made picture that had made her well known. We met at a dive bar in the beach in Venice. Not the Venice Beach you know now, but the rough, forgotten place where performers went to hide for a time. She was by herself at the end of the bar with shades on, even though it was almost midnight. I knew her right away, although something about how she acted made me think she didn't want to be. She informed me she didn't want to be acknowledged. Sam asked for a beer and kept to himself, like he was supposed to, but Raquel done what she was told to do. But Raquel was astonished him by speaking first and asking whether he had a match for her cigarette. She spoke in a different from what he thought, softer, more open than the confident purr that had started 1,000 daydreams. Later, she told me that she chose me because was the only guy there who didn't try to impress her or buy her anything, her a drink, or act like we had met. I used to just be somewhere in their own place. And it looks like that was just what she needed. What came next was not like anything Sam has ever done before with the other women he had met. Raquel was older, had more experience, and was carrying herself with the self-assurance of someone who had already ruled the globe and thought it was lacking. But under that calmness was a loneliness that was the same as his seeking trait that attracted them together. Even though it's clear contrasts in their situations, their affair happened in secret, places all throughout Los Angeles. Raquel's cottage, in the hills, where she would cook awaiting him, wearing nothing but one of his shirts, going about the kitchen with an elegance that was at odds with what the public thought they knew about her. Long drives along the shore, where she would let her hair down and become just a woman who enjoys a man who looked beyond the image to the person who was under. She was kind. Sam remembers how his voice got softer, not with presents or money, but with herself. She told some of her story that never got into the interviews. The fights, the deals, the cost of becoming an icon before she was ready to deal with the stress of it. Sam puts down his whiskey glass and stares intently at the person interviewing him, then passed to the camera that has been recording every single syllable. The light in the afternoon has turned to dusk outside his Malibu house, as the shadows have gotten longer across the chamber where the most famous people in Hollywood, the mysterious cowboy has finally spoken up. Quiet, he says that these women are holding the weight of decades and the knowledge of a man who has loved sincerely and lost with elegance. They taught me that you can't write down or plan desire. Direct, it's something that happens between the lines in the areas where two people choose to be truthful with one another. The mustache shakes one last time. Moment in Sam Elliott at 81 looks just like what he is. A man who has lived, loved wholeheartedly, found peace, and lived fully in the telling. The story behind the laconic draw has told his truth and the mystery is still there in some way.